Welcome to SunnySpeaks. Here again with another review for you, and you. And today, I'm going to talk about Warfare, directed by Alex Garland and starring Joseph Quinn, Poulter, Woon-A-Tai, and many more. Warfare is about the true story of a surveillance mission gone wrong for a platoon of American Navy SEALs in insurgent territory during the Iraq War. Taking shelter in a civilian's family's home, the Navy SEALs fight to survive the attack and to leave with the same number of soldiers that they came with. Alex Garland co-wrote this film with Mendoza, who is a Iraq veteran who was present for the events that take place during the 1 hour and 35 runtime of this film. I'm not pro-war, but I will say I respect Mendoza and all the other soldiers who wanted this story to be told, because this is a very gruesome and tragic event to experience. When it comes to the film itself, I feel like it's a mixed bag. The presentation of Warfare is great. Alex Garland has a keen eye for detail and how to make the mundane look interesting, and while I feel that applies here as well, I do think that this is the most boring film in Garland's filmography so far, but still, I think this movie looks great overall. The sound design is the star of this film for real. Glenn Fremantle was the main sound editor, and I think the entire crew did an incredible job creating such a visceral audio experience that really grounds you into this reality, and when shit does hit the fan, it doesn't let you relax, which allows you to relate to our main characters. Honestly, the only way that I was able to relate to them. A scene in particular going from super quiet with tension building to a loud explosion, and showing how explosions affect a person sonically and mentally. Easily my favorite part of the film and the turning point of the plot. The shootouts in this film are also really well shot and directed, and an interesting aspect of them is that you never really see a kill shot. There are deaths in this movie, but they are very few and far between considering what the story is. And to me, my interpretation of why Garland chose to shoot these action scenes in this way is to isolate you in the moment of fear and confusion when pointing a automatic weapon and shooting into smoke and dust. I also think that showing the bodies drop of nameless Iraq soldiers would probably feel more like romanticism of war, even though this movie is already that inherently. Though I do think the movie does try to not be that, and I think that's one of the frustrating parts about this film. Last real positive I'll say is that in the dialogue, I really appreciated the attention to detail when it came to the equipment the soldiers used to communicate and the terminology being used and how that affected the characters. As the situation becomes more dire and explosive, pun intended, you can tell that keeping up with the terminology while under fire starts to add more pressure and stress to an already chaotic situation. And moments of sensory overload were really well done with the radios and the panic being heard on the channels. And when one of the characters takes their helmet off to kill the noise, it felt like a sigh of relief for me, which I think was really well done and was definitely intentional to have a moment of peace before cutting to the next scream or the next gunshot being heard. And I really did appreciate that. This movie had a very Uncut Gems vibe to me in the way that it was able to build tension really well and create so much anxiety. I think it's a little easier to do that with this movie because of it being this sort of situation and being in a war setting. And I do think Uncut Gems is a way better film because of it being able to do that. I would argue even better with way lower stakes. But I do think that is a good comparison to make. Both of those movies create really well-made scenes that have a lot of tension that leave you on the edge of your seat. Though Warfare is effective in being the movie that has made me jump the most out of any cinematic experience I've had this year, not just out of surprise, but out of fear of what might come next. The characters and the way the movie chooses to navigate the story, while understanding the approach, it left me unable to connect to our main cast. There is no main character of this story, mainly an ensemble of capable actors across the board. But I think that they are given very little to do as characters, which I do get being purposeful, but honestly, I think that approach left me more disinterested than I would have liked. Poulter played Eric, the captain of this platoon, who seems very prepared for this mission, but when they are ambushed, he becomes fearful and frantic, needing to pick up the pieces of his psyche. I would say the best and most believable performer in the film. Cosmo Jarvis plays Elliot, a sniper in the platoon who sustains horrific injuries after this attack. Elliot was a character I wish I connected to more, but I feel like the script in the movie's intentions doesn't really allow you to do that. But maybe it's possible I just don't like these characters or these people and how they are portrayed on screen. I don't know, honestly. And the fact that he is basically the poster guy for this film is weird to me because he is not that much of a character. I do understand why he is though, because of the aesthetic that he holds, and also I think that what the character goes through does represent a lot of what this movie is. But I do wish that Cosmo Jarvis as Elliot was just given a little bit more or was allowed to do more. Honestly, a lot of this movie feels like it held back a lot of the actors, and I understand why, to make it more realistic, but in doing that it just created such a gap in connection and understanding of who these people are and what they want. DeFaro Woon-A-Tai plays Ray Mendoza, which if there was a main character, I guess he would be that. There's not much to pull from his character for me until after the ambush, but I thought his facial expressions and reactions to the horror surrounding these soldiers was super eerie and worked well enough, but not the entire time. He was one of the actors in this that felt more unbelievable in his role to me. Joseph Quinn plays Sam, who is the most interesting character in this story to me, though at a certain point he is just screaming very loudly and it is effectively unnerving. I could try to explain his character, but I honestly feel like that would be me grasping at straws rather than dissecting a narrative that I think is there to be consumed. The movie's goal, in Garland and Mendoza's words, sourced by a /film.com interview article, was to depict the truth of combat as closely as possible without supplying an obvious message. And while having an appreciation for more centrist views, because I think a lot of things in life fall more in a gray area than people would like to admit, as one of my YouTube peers, Joseph Garvey, would say, I don't think the Iraq War is something that you can be in the middle about. And choosing to do a story like this does feel kinda lame, tone deaf, and purposefully obtuse. If the movie is about the people in the war instead of the war itself, we should know more about these people and their connections with each other and what they personally are fighting for, which in turn would have heightened the tension and desperation throughout, because I was on the edge of my seat without caring at all about any of them. So if I actually cared and their fates mattered to me, this movie would have been so much better. And it is a good film. It's solid, but the characters are really what lacks in this for me. Overall, Warfare is technically and visually great, and not only showcases a different type of war film, but I also can commend the idea of making a war film with a message not being obvious. But the way Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza chose to write that in the script is not for me personally. And I would never watch it again, not to avoid the tension and bloodshed, but to avoid the boring characters that we stay with for the whole time. Despite me thinking every actor in this movie is good and capable of better performances, I would give this movie a cloudy rating. This has been my review of Warfare. If you have seen Warfare, let me know what you think in the comments down below, because perspective is key. And if you haven't seen Warfare, let me know if this review makes you want to go see the movie or not. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I'll be back again, and peace.